Quick, what are the most memorable villains you can come up with? Time's up. Did you say Darth Vader? Or maybe Hannibal Lecter? Voldemort? And yet, in most books, movies, and imagination of the future, it tends to be the kind of disembodied, abstract villains out of control. Maybe it's environmental disaster, nanotechnology gone wild, some lab-made disease turning people into zombies, AI, God knows that fear's been milked to death. It's not that these abstract villains, quote-unquote, are more memorable, but actually, it's the fear of loss of control that has a lot more power over us than any one individual character and some army of nondescript bad guys. You know the kind of movie that I'm talking about. Now, why is that? Why do we fear the future and paint it in such dark colors, a lot more than in bright colors? After all, we've made it this far. For one, we look at the bad things a lot more than we look at the good ones. We focus in on what's wrong and what can go wrong. It's in our nature, actually. If you were prowling the savannas 100,000 years ago and you heard in the woods a saber-tooth growled, well, one of those you need to pay a little more attention to the other, because otherwise you might get eaten. What's more, we fear the future, especially when we doubt our own ability to handle it. Maybe it's lack of control, a lack of preparation, or self-deception about our own ability, but the fact is, we tend to look at the future with a bit of uncertainty. As for the big things that we don't have control of, whether it's globalization, AI, nuclear war, so far we've been remarkably good at managing our worst impulses better and better, and it does seem that for all our faults, as a whole species, there are some people among us that do think ahead and work out the kinks. And I'm glad that we have those people around. Remember that there is a fear market, and there's plenty out there to exploit it, whether that fear has a base or not. Just how Jules Verne or Arthur C. Clarke didn't quite predict our present, so too we're not going to predict the future accurately. And sometimes that's actually better for us. Remember that uncertainty works both ways. Nobody ever thinks about the ways in which something unexpected can be beneficial. When I was going to move into university, I had nightmare after nightmare, stressed out about the ways in which I could mess up the first couple of weeks and how badly they could possibly go. And it was scary as hell, even during the day. In many ways, I was right to be scared. It was a new experience. I had no idea and very few things to ground me. But I was blinded by that fear to the reality that everyone else in those first couple of weeks was just as cautious and scared and shy in those first weeks, trying to navigate this new network of who's friends with whom, who knows whom, and what do I need to do to get ahead. Now, two great questions that, from experience, speak to my or your ability to handle the future. Do you trust your ability to handle things that life throws at you? And if not, how do you get better at that? Those are the questions that I've been asking myself constantly because I'm scared of the future. The future isn't static, I keep telling myself. It isn't predetermined. If you're not ready for it, then get started. It sounds stupid, but I watched hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos to prepare for university. Looking back at the research I did, you'd think I was prepping for my dissertation or something. When it comes to the future, there's a concept of hedging your bets. How can you best expose yourself so that you can win more, lose less? How can you reduce the downside and increase the upside? Do you need to reduce your debt and increase your savings? Or maybe the amount of time that you spend on something and increase the amount of time that you spend on something else, or have that flexibility in case something happens. For me, I had to reduce my time commitments, so I had more flexibility to take up something new when I started a new job, or even back when I started uni. To do that, I made sure that I couldn't play any more computer games for that time. That was a task and a half. I spent more time out of my room, less time on my computer, doing non-productive stuff. And then when I started my job a couple of months ago, I hung out with housemates more, made new friends, whether at work or outside of work, met people back from back in my time in university, not to mention getting to know the neighborhood and the town better. And I'm better for that. How can you do this with money, time, commitments, or just the way you manage your personal well-being? Again, a question that I have asked myself again and again. Is it to open myself to more good things? Or is it to keep myself flexible? For me, it was cutting deadweight time, playing computer games less. Maybe for you, it's something else. Here's some ways to manage your fear of the future. 1. Think of yourself doing the task. This helps you realize it's not nearly as bad as you might think. Half the trick is breaking down the task. You can draw it out, pen and paper, draw a mind map or spiderweb diagram if you like structure, or maybe talk yourself through it. Or maybe it's closing your eyes and see how you might feel at every step of the thing you're about to do. That last one works for me. See what works for you. 2. Go out for a walk. Think what's happening in your life and how could that work out in the next couple of months or years, whatever time frame you're looking at. Bonus points if you talk to a friend while you're walking. Really listen to your friend. Don't just nod, agree, and go away doing nothing. 3. Move. Take action. Start with a plan, but always make the first move. Don't let the future sneak up on you unannounced. Show the future who's boss. Being optimistic might have a genetic element, yes, but it also comes down to habit. The way you regularly think about the future has more of an impact than whether you were born with a quote-unquote happy or unhappy brain. Build that habit. It takes some effort to start with, but eventually the habit takes over. And with that, you take over and have control over your future. To end with a quote that I really, really like, whether you tell yourself you can or you tell yourself you can't, you're right. As always, let us know if you found the video useful with a thumbs up, pop a comment down below to let us know what you think and be part of the conversation, and subscribe if you love the kind of content on the channel. See you next time. Ciao.